What's going on, guys? Welcome to the second edition of my 2021 NHL mock draft. This is the first post-lottery mock draft I'm doing. My first mock draft was actually 4 months ago, way before the lottery, but now that we know the exact order, figured I had to make a new one. This one's only going to be the top 15 picks, and then a couple weeks before the draft actually happens, I'll do an entire first round mock draft. Now, before I get started, guys, if you enjoy these mock drafts, please leave a thumbs up. But next up, we have the Buffalo Sabres here, making the first overall selection in 2021, and I have them taking Owen Power. He, of course, is the consensus first overall pick. Now, having said that, would not be surprised at all if Buffalo goes a different direction. It is not at all like years past where he's a sure thing to go first overall. This year, more than any, it is absolutely wide open. Not only was it going to be a pretty wide open draft class from the get-go, but with the pandemic and everything, teams have been able to scout less, which puts a lot more things up in the air. I feel like that'll make for a very exciting draft, but Owen Power first overall to Buffalo. Honestly, it's the safe pick. As I mentioned, he's the consensus number one. You can see here on Elite Prospects, majority of scouts do have him as the number one player in this draft class. He's 6'5". He might even be 6'6" by now, I think I saw. So he's a big defenseman. He definitely has that NHL size. He looked good his freshman year at Michigan, 16 points in 26 games. And as you can see below that, he's actually playing for Canada at the World Championships this year. He's got 3 points in 8 games. So the fact he's already not only playing with men, but like actual NHL players holding his own. I saw he actually won player of the game the one night, so that tells you this guy is definitely NHL ready. Again, I feel like in such a wild open draft class, Buffalo shouldn't overpick it. Take the consensus number one guy in Owen Power. He might not turn out to be the best player from this draft class. I'm sure there's other guys with higher ceilings, but I feel like Owen Power's floor is definitely the highest. Like, without a doubt, he'll be a steady, everyday NHL defenseman. And I should mention, between Power and Dahlin, I feel like Buffalo's defense is set for the next decade. Now they're going to figure out what they're going to do with Jack Eichel, as well as Sam Reinhart, who apparently isn't too happy. Now, next up, guys, we have the new NHL team, Seattle Kraken, picking second overall. The only team in the lottery to move up. They moved up from 3 to 2. I have them taking another Michigan player here in Matthew Beniers. He's a very solid two-way center. Looked good playing for Michigan this year. Also looked good playing for USA at the World Junior Championship. Some scouts have him ranked as high as number 1. I think I see 3 scouts there who have him at number 1. Mackenzie there has him ranked 4. 6'1", so definitely, big enough to be an NHL center. Was a point per game at Michigan. In the World Juniors, he only had 3 points in 7 games. And he's also playing at the World Championship this year, just like Power. But for the States, he's currently got 2 points in 6 games. So also shows there's a good chance he could be NHL ready. Obviously, World Championship this year doesn't have the best NHL players, but still NHL players nevertheless. And I mean with Seattle, depending on how their expansion draft goes, they might need him to jump into that lineup. Looking at all that, I feel like Beniers should be the first forward taken from this draft class. Obviously, Seattle's a brand new team. They are not drafting by position whatsoever. They're taking the best player available, and I truly believe that is Matthew Beniers. Just like how Seattle's the only team to move up in the draft, the Ducks are the only team to move down as they obviously swap their picks. But I still feel like they're going to get a very good player here, taking William Eklund third overall. He's a guy who's really rose his draft stock over the past few months. I think in my last mock draft, which was at the end of January, I had him getting taken 11th, still by the Ducks. So going to the same team, but they're using a higher pick on him. And honestly, I think that is fine. Eklund has a ton of skilled, definitely one of the most skilled forwards in this draft class. Might not be quite as all-around a player as Beniers, but I think he definitely has the advantage there in terms of the offensive prowess. You guys can see a bit shorter there. He's 5'10". He can play center or the wing. Where he'll be at the NHL level, kind of too early to say. Bob McKenzie there has him ranked number 7. But as you can see here, a lot of scouts have him ranked quite highly. Number 2 there by Elite Prospects, 3 FC Hockey. Number 1 for European skaters, another number 2, another number 2. Again, very, very highly rated, very smart player who always works hard and opens up the play for his teammates according to the one scout there. You guys can see he actually played in the SHL this year, so it's a professional men's league. Put up 23 points in 40 games as an 18-year-old, which I think is very impressive. Year before that, playing on the under-20 team, over a point per game, 36 and 31. Again, I feel like the Ducks are obviously in a rebuild. They're just looking for the best player. I really think they're getting that with William Eklund. And next up here, guys, at number 4, we have the New Jersey Devils, who are actually hosting the draft this year. And I'm going to have them making a big splash, taking Luke Hughes, 4th overall. I feel like uniting the Hughes brothers, him and Jack, should be pretty cool to see. The fans, of course, if there are any fans of the draft in New Jersey, will definitely enjoy that. One thing with Luke Hughes is he has such a high ceiling in this draft class. You can see he's actually committed to the University of Michigan, but he's not playing there yet as he's too young. He's one of the youngest players in this draft class, born September 2003. If you guys look at some of the other players, Eklund's October 2002. So Eklund's almost a year older than Luke Hughes. And the 17, 18-year-olds, a year is a lot of development. And I think that's why Hughes is kind of going up and up in these draft class rankings, because you got to remember just how much younger he is than the rest of these guys. Michigan, I feel, is getting a great player. Hopefully his freshman year at college, he does well, and honestly, if he does good enough, he might jump right into the NHL after next season. I can see playing for the USA. He had 15 points in 18 games in the USHL, and then the United States Development Program, almost a point per game there, 34 and 38 as a defenseman. So definitely an offensive defenseman like his brother Quinn. He's bigger than Quinn as well. He's 6'2". Quinn's only 5'10". But I do think Quinn probably is a bit more offensive. I can see there actually is a couple scouts here who have him as ranked as the #1 prospect. So I don't think 4 is too high at all for Luke Hughes. Jack's actually come out and say that if he's available, he wants the Devils to take him. So I feel like if he is available at 4, it'll be very tough for the Devils to pass on him. Not only because I think he's worth the #4 pick, with Jack saying, go get my brother. I think the Stars are going to line here and they'll take Luke Hughes. The next year, guys, at #5, with the Columbus Blue Jackets making their pick, I feel like with Seth Jones most likely getting traded this summer, they're going to take a defenseman, as there's a lot of good defensemen available here, and I have them taking Brandt Clarke. I actually had him going 2nd overall a few months ago. I'm not really sure if I would say his draft stock has gone down as much as it is just Beniers, Eklund, and Hughes stock has gone up. So Clarke at #5 is a very good pick. I've seen some people say that he is the best defenseman in this draft class. Now looking at elite prospects here, I don't actually see any of these scouts ranking him as the #1. 4 of the scouts here do have him as a #2 ranked prospect. I think it was some, Twitter scout that was saying he was #1. I forget if it was an analytic based or whatever. Right there, this guy says there's an opportunity to join the rush. He does. If there isn't, he rates 1 and joins anyway. Solid size, 6'2" there. Played for Barrie Colts last season. Solid year, 38 points, 57 games. Obviously, with the pandemic, couldn't play in the OHL. There was no OHL season, but had 15 points in 26 games in Slovakia, which I think is very, very hard to judge. It's a men's league, but it's the Slovak league. I don't know really how competitive it is. Now, playing for the under-18s, he had a point per game there, 7 and 7 with a +12. So I think Brandt Clarke of the Columbus Blue Jackets is a very, very good pick. I see them taking him or Edvinsson with this pick, and I know some people are very high on Edvinsson, but personally, I feel like Clarke's the better prospect. And next up here, guys, #6, we have my favorite team, the Detroit Red Wings. Honestly, this is a tough pick. For me, it was between 3 guys, either Kent Johnson, Dylan Guenther, or Simon Edvinsson. I did my best to try and think like Steve Yzerman, who would he take here of those 3? And honestly, I'm not sure if this is who he would take, but I feel like the best pick at this spot is Kent Johnson, another Michigan player. That's actually 4 Michigan players in the top 6, which is pretty crazy. He is Canadian, though, just playing college hockey at Michigan. Now, the reason I have them taking Kent Johnson is simply because I think he has one of the highest ceilings in this draft class. The guy has so much skill. His hands are nasty. He has great vision. Overall, like I said, just a great playmaker. And he's honestly got a decent shot, too. You can see there he's 6'1", but he's only 165 pounds, so he's definitely a little bit underweight. I saw Craig Button compare him to Elias Peterson with a slightly worse shot, and honestly, I will take that every single day of the week. Looking at his scout rankings here, you can see he's basically between like 6 and 8. There's 110 and 111. There's even a 3 actually, but everyone else seems to have him, 6, 7, 8, or 9. So personally, like I said, I think he's got the highest ceiling. For Detroit, we really need a superstar. Lucas Raymond's nice. Zadina's nice. Sider's looking really, really good, but we need a guy who can really take over the game, create offense for us. I believe we were the 2nd lowest scoring team in the league this year. I will double check that. And obviously, you never want to draft based on need, but when you just can't score, I feel like that's a pretty significant need. So, goals for, we were the 2nd worst. Only Anaheim had 1 less goal than us there. So I feel like Kent Johnson would honestly be a great player. Obviously, he's in our backyard. I'm assuming our scouts have watched him a ton. The year before he played at Michigan, he played in the BCHL, averaged almost 2 points a game. He had 101 there in 52. I also should mention he had over a point per game as a freshman playing for Michigan. I believe he was actually the highest scoring college player in this draft class. So there's a lot to like about Kent Johnson. Really, the only 2 downsides I've seen on him are the fact that he's not that big, but honestly, it's a lot easier to add weight than it is to add natural hockey skill. The other is defensive side of the game isn't that great, but again, I'm looking for offensive player who can really take over that side of the game. We can have defensive players. I want someone who's all offense. So personally, I really like this pick of Kent Johnson for the Red Wings. Are they going to do it? We'll have to see. Red Wings fans, let me know if you like this or not. I've seen a lot of people actually saying they think the Red Wings will go with Wallstedt here at #6. Personally, though, I don't see it happening. A first-round goalie is one thing, but a goalie at 6th overall is another. I was actually listening to an Yzerman press conference where he said, there's a ton of different forwards and defensemen that could go at 6th. Did not mention a goalie. I think his exact quote was something like, there's tons of positions to choose from at 6 other than goalie. So I don't know if that's a smokescreen. Maybe he will take Wallstedt, but personally, I feel like he'll pass on him. We do have 2 first-round picks this year after the Mantha trade, so if Wallstedt starts to fall into the teens, maybe we move up and take him. And if not, if he gets taken in the teens, I feel like there's a good chance that with our Capitals pick, we could potentially take Sebastian Cossa from the Edmonton Oil Kings, who's the second highest ranked goalie in this draft class. And I feel like that'd be a pretty nasty first round. Kent Johnson with our first pick, and Cossa with the second. But moving on now, guys, to the next team. At the number 7 pick, we have the San Jose Sharks, and I feel like, honestly, kind of just falling into their lap, they're going to be taking Simon Edvinsson. Similar to Owen Power, he's a big defenseman. You can see 6'5". Both Power and Edvinsson have drawn comparisons to Victor Hedman. Now, I don't think either of these guys will end up being as good as Victor Hedman, as that would mean they're the best defenseman in the NHL at one point. But, of course, they use their size to their advantage like him. And Edvinsson's also Swedish, just like Hedman. He's a guy that's actually kind of been ranked all over the place. You can see Bob McKenzie has him at number 2. You look at the rankings here, though, he's anywhere from 2 to 9. So it's really tough to say. I think, a lot of guys probably are ranking him quite highly, similar to Power because of that size. And with the draft being kind of such a crapshoot, you want to take something that's a bit more of a known commodity. He's got the size of an NHL defenseman. He's pretty skilled. You can see some of the quotes here. He defends well with his reach, maintains strong gap control, slippery when controlling the puck, very technically skilled defenseman, good skater and mobile, strong in his own end, poised and smooth. I've seen actually some people think Detroit could take him as he also plays on Frölunda, same team as Lucas Raymond. Now speaking of that, you guys will see in 10 games for Frölunda this year, he only has 1 point. And before he got called up to the men's team, on the under 20 team there, he had 6 points in 14 games. Playing for the under 18s, he had 4 points in 7 games, also isn't too bad, but like I said, I don't know why, I just feel like he might be a guy that slips a bit. I could be wrong, but for reasons I've already mentioned, I like, the previous 6 players a little bit better than him. The Sharks, though, definitely need some defense other than Ryan Merkley. Not a whole lot of defensive prospects coming up for them. And, of course, they've got 3 anchored veteran defensive contracts in Karlsson, Burns, and Vlasic, who aren't getting any younger. So if they want to start rebuilding that team, why not do it with a solid defenseman like Edvinsson? Now, moving on here, guys, to number 8, we have the LA Kings, another Cali team. And kind of similar to Edvinsson dropping to San Jose, I have Dylan Guenther dropping to the LA Kings. He's another guy that's kind of ranked all over the place. I've seen him as high as 2, and I've seen him even outside the top 10. Looking at the rankings here, McKenzie has him ranked 2. I guess him and Edvinsson are tied. How is that a thing? How are they both ranked 2? Whatever. And as you can see, looking at everyone else, he is as low as 12 on a couple people's rankings. A lot of 8s there. There's a 5, there's a 7, there's even a 4. So, again, this draft class is very hard to rank. The Shark remains an explosive goal-scoring tool enhanced by his top-of-the-class puck timing and instincts around the net. I think Guenther's biggest attribute, honestly, is his speed. Probably one of, if not the fastest prospect in this draft class. For sure the fastest that's supposed to go in the first round. Use that to his advantage. Now in the WHL this year, you can see he had 24 points in 12 games. He averaged 2 points a game, which is not bad at all. And even the year before that, he put up over a point per game. So pretty impressive, I'd say. At the under 18s, he had 7 points in 7 games. So again, a very good player. I see him kind of similar to Johnson, but a bit faster, maybe a bit more two-way, not quite as high-end offensive skill. Again, I think, him, Edvinsson, Johnson, that's kind of the next tier for me after the top 5. I feel like LA getting Guenther here is a really good pick. I'll be adding him to an ever-growing group of sick prospects down in LA with Quentin Byfield, Alex Turcotte, Arthur Kaliev, Gabe Lardy. I think the future in LA is looking quite bright. Now next year, guys, the number 9 spot, I have the Vancouver Canucks taking the best player available, and in my opinion, that's Fabian Lysell, another Swedish forward, just very, very skilled. You guys can see, not the biggest, 5'10", 172, but he definitely makes up for that with his skill. Bob McKenzie has him at 12. You can see he's as high as 3 on some draft boards, but definitely I think, 9 spot makes sense for him. A couple quotes here, he plays at a high pace with a high skill level, creating a lot for himself and others. Highly skilled fourth, impressive technical skills, and amazing release. Scores a lot of goals and is a little team player. So, I guess that's good to know. He's probably not going to leave your team, but I think the big thing there, you can see it's mentioned multiple times in each quote, is just how skilled this guy is. They're getting a very offensive skilled player. Playing in the SHL this year, he didn't do too great. He only had 3 points in 26 games. But on the under 20 team, he had over a point per game. He had 13 there. The year before that, he had 34 and 14. So he was absolutely tearing it up. As well, on the under 18 team there, he had 9 points in 7 games. So this is a dude I feel could mesh very well potentially with Elias Peterson going forward in the future for the Canucks, assuming, they get him signed and everything. Defensively, they got Quinn Hughes on the backhand. They probably maybe could use a defenseman more so than a forward, but I feel like the Canucks are a good enough team. I feel like this was a bit of a fluke year with everything that happened. Just take the best player available, take Fabian Lysell. Don't overthink it. And next year, guys, number 10, we have another Canadian team, the Ottawa Senators, and I feel like, they're on the right path here. Their young team looked very good this year, especially in the second half of the season. No reason why they can't take the best player available. Then actually is going to be the local kid here in Mason McTavish. On Elite Prospects, it said he was born in Switzerland, as he actually was born in Switzerland while his dad was playing professional hockey over there, but he grew up in Pembroke, Ontario, which is just outside of Ottawa, so I think that'd be a pretty cool story. He's another guy's draft stock has rose a lot in the last couple months. You can see he's a big center here, 6'2", 200 pounds. No reason why he can't continue to get bigger. Bob McKenzie has him ranked number 11. I see he's ranked as highly as 5, and then as low as 32 by Smot Scouting. I don't know about that one. The reason why I think his draft stock went up so much is just how good he looked at the under-18 tournament. 11 points there in 7 games. And you can see he played on loan in Switzerland this year. He had 11 points in 13 games, so I think it's pretty impressive. Year before that, 42 and 57, playing for the Peterborough Pete. So I feel like with McTavish, they get a guy who could turn out to be a first-line center. Obviously, we've already mentioned it. This draft class isn't the greatest, so his ceiling might be number 2 center, but Ottawa does need a first-line center. Josh Norris could turn out to be that as well. Why not take a stab at a guy here who has that potential? You can see this quote, McTavish thrives on finding space. Those instincts combined with the booming shot will allow him to pile up goals at any level. So, like I said, I think he's a good, solid center, offensive. He's got some defensive capabilities as well. Local kid. Just seems like the perfect fit for me on the Ottawa Senators. Now, next up, guys, the number 11 pick for the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, this one's a little bit tough for me, but in the end, I decided I think they're going to go with Jesper Wallstedt here. As I mentioned before, he's without a doubt the top goaltender prospect in this draft class, and he's well worth the first-round pick, just like a Askarov last year and Spencer Knight a couple years before. He might actually be the best of those 3. Once you're outside the top 10, is when teams are going to start thinking about taking that first-round goalie. And Wallstedt at 11, I think, makes a lot of sense for the Blackhawks. Obviously, Lincoln didn't play too bad this year, but I think, moving forward, Blackhawks are definitely in a rebuild. Who's going to be the goaltender when they win the Stanley Cup with Kirby Dach in the C, DeBrincat and Strome carrying that team 5-6 years from now? Probably not going to be Lankinen, but it could be Jesper Wallstedt. You guys can see he's a big goalie, 6'3", 214. Bob McKenzie there has him ranked at number 10. He's all over the place. Number 1 EU goalie doesn't really mean much. Obviously, he's the number 1, but yeah, ranked anywhere between, I think, 4 is the highest I see him there, and as low as 17. But I think 17 is probably realistic for where he could go in the draft, but he's probably not the 17th best player in the draft, if that makes sense. Just a lot of teams, they don't need a goalie, obviously. He's not going to be very high on their board. Now, if you guys look at his stats, playing the SHL this year with men for Luleå, he had 22 games played with a 2.23 goals against and a .908 save percentage. So I think that's very impressive. The year before that, playing on the under-20 team, 2.53, so actually higher goals against, but better save percentage there of .923. So again, a very, very good goalie. I think, Chicago has some pretty good forwards, has some pretty good defensemen. That goalie of the future, though, I don't really think they have that yet. Why not get a great one in Jesper Wallstedt? Now, next year, guys, the Calgary Flames taking Cole Sillinger. I feel like he's a very solid forward prospect. Lots of great offensive talent, especially his shots. Supposed to have one of the better shots in this draft class. You can see he's Canadian, but he was actually born in Columbus. So I'm guessing his parents moved to Canada when he was really young. Looking at his draft class ranking, you can see McKenzie there has him at 13. Everyone else looks to have him somewhere between 12 and 16, or actually even as low as 18 and 20. I feel like, again, with the wide open draft class, yeah, it's going to start getting pretty crazy. But I think 13 for Sillinger honestly makes a lot of sense. Last year, the Medicine Hat Tigers, he had 53 points in 48 games, over a point per game, his 17-year-old season. 18-year-old season here, playing in the USHL. He actually had put up 46 points in 31 games, just under a point per game, playing on the under-17 team with Canada last year. Again, I think, this guy has a lot of offensive upside. Look at the other players available. I think Sillinger makes a lot of sense for the Flames. I saw some people thinking they might go Wallstedt here if he's available, but obviously I have him going to Chicago, in which case I think Sillinger's the best player available, so Flames should take him. And now next year, guys, number 13, the Philadelphia Flyers taking Chaz Lucius. Again, similar to the last pick, I think he's just the best player available, although I do think him and Cole Sillinger are very, very similar. You can see they're actually both 6 foot. Sillinger's a bit heavier there, 200 pounds. Lucius only 172, but they're very offensive. Both have very good shots. I think Sillinger's skating's a little bit worse. I did see some people say skating needs worked on. Lucius, you can see, combines creative, crafty hands with a quick release on his shot, making for a goal-scoring weapon. King offensive player with exceptional problem-solving skills throughout the puck anywhere in the offensive zone. So again, 2 very good offensive centers. Could move to the wing potentially at the NHL level, but also are natural centers. Lucius here on the U.S. team, 20 points, 13 games, 18 points, 12 games. You can see in both leagues he averaged a goal a game, so that is very impressive, I think. 50 points in 46 games a year ago, 31 goals in those 46 games. So again, another goal scorer there. You need goals to win this league, so I think the Philadelphia Flyers get a great pick there with Lucius. And next, you guys, the number 14 pick of the Dallas Stars. This one was honestly tough for me. A lot of different directions they could go, and I feel like they're going to swing for the fences here and take Aatu Räty, the former consensus first overall pick this time last year. Obviously, he's fallen hard in the rankings. Similar, I think, to Chychrun his draft year. He was supposed to go 2 behind Matthews, fell a ton. I know Liljegren as well, his draft year, fell a ton. Usually those guys who are supposed to go 1 or 2 and fall a bunch end up being taken somewhere in the middle of the first round. So number 14, I think, makes a lot of sense for Aatu Räty. Now, he didn't make the World Junior team this year, but he did make it the year before. 3 points in 7 games. Currently had 6 points in 35 games playing in the men's league this year in Finland. But I mean, we saw Fabian Lysel's men's team. Point total wasn't that great either. He had about a point per game in the under 20 team. The year before, he had 4 and 12 in the men's league, 21 and 30 on the under 20 team. I saw some things saying he kind of like just had a rough year, wasn't enjoying hockey. Some of it might have had to do with the pandemic, this and that. I feel like if you're the Dallas Stars, who else are you really going to take here? Why not go for it? Swing for the fences. Take this guy who, 365 days ago was consensus number 1. Looking at the scouting rankings here, you can see all over the place. Some people still have him as high ranked as number 3, but most people have him between, say, 12 and 20. So, again, I think 14 makes a lot of sense. Also, if you guys don't know, Dallas Stars never seen a draft well in the first round. I think it's too early to say on Bjork and Harley. Delandria's not bad, but 13 for him I think was a little early. Miro Heiskanen there at 3. I'm not going to really count that. Top 3 pick is different. Riley Tough there, terrible pick. Gurianov, 12's also pretty early, I think, for the 2015 draft. And you look at who was drafted after him, Barzal, Connor, Besser, Shabbat. But he's actually starting to come around. A bit of a late bloomer. Honka not a great pick. Nichushkin not a great pick. Faxa not a great pick. Alexiak not a great pick. Campbell just now broke up from being a backup on the Leafs. We'll see what happens there. Glenny, terrible pick. Vishnevsky, terrible pick. Niskin's not a bad pick. Fischerick was a bad pick. Wagner didn't play a game as a first rounder. This dude played 38. Steve Ott's like a good 4th line, grinder guy. He's not a first round pick. Brendan Morrow, fair enough, is a good pick. Jackman, again, when they trade away. Botterill, Harvey. Honestly, I don't even know. Those guys are so old. But basically all I'm saying is Dallas first round draft record isn't the greatest. I don't really know who else you're going to take here. Take the guy who just a season ago everyone thought was going to go first overall and hope for the best. And speaking of players whose draft stock has fallen, guys, finally, with the number 15 pick here, I have the New York Rangers taking Carson Lambos. He's a guy who I think was as high as top 5 last season. Now the Rangers are getting him at 15. Honestly, this is a bit of a pick by need for me, more so than best player available. He very well might be the best player available, but I feel like looking at the Rangers, they have more than enough offense. They really need defense, and I feel like Lambos is the best defenseman available at this spot. In terms of scouting rankings, kind of all over again. There's a number 2 there by Neutral Zone, and then he goes as low as 30 by Elite Prospects. So definitely, people feel very differently about him. I know he was playing over in Finland this year. 0 points in 2 games on the men's team. On the under 20 team, though, he had 11 and 13. I did get a couple games played for Winnipeg before I believe he got injured. Last year, 32 and 57. Looked pretty good. I think, honestly, a lot of people said he just didn't look that good playing in Europe. But again, that could just be the bigger ice. Who really knows what's going on this last year? I feel like the mental side of it has to be taken into consideration with some of these players. The pandemic, I'm sure, affected some of them. So I think Carson Lambos, though, with the New York Rangers, I think it's a good pick. Like I said, he's kind of a guy like Aatu Räty. I don't looking at the other names available. I don't really know where you're going to get more value than him. I feel like they definitely need defense, best defenseman available. You got to hope that he's going to look like his WHL self more than his Finnish self. In which case, I think number 15 for Lambos is a very good pick. And that's me, guys, for this mock draft. Let me know in the comment section who you think your favorite team is going to take. If you guys enjoyed this one, leave a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the sub button. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.